Hello, fabulous fourth graders, and welcome to our next grammar lesson. Today we are talking about subject and verb agreement. And you might be thinking, subject, hang on, we talked about subjects last week. And you're right, we did. We talked about how every sentence needs a subject and a predicate. Can you remember what a subject is? And give an example. You're right. A subject of a sentence is who or what the sentence is about. For example, Santa Claus is coming to town. The subject of the sentence is Santa Claus. Okay, so a person or a place or a thing, whatever the subject of the sentence is about. Okay, so that's the subject. Now, if we need subject and verb agreement, what is a verb? And we have talked about verbs a lot. We've talked about helping verbs and linking verbs. And basically, remember, a verb is an action. Action verbs are the most common verbs. An example, like for that sentence, Santa Claus is coming to town, coming would be the verb. It's the action. Okay? So we are learning about how the subject and the verb in a sentence have to work together to agree and sound good. And the way that we make sure that the subject agrees with the verb is we think about whether there's just one subject that the sentence is about or whether there's more than one. So here's rule number one. If the subject is singular, then you will add an S to the action verb. Now you might be thinking, what does singular mean? But maybe you've noticed that singular sounds like single, and single means one. So that means if there is one thing or person that the sentence is about, then you're going to add an S to the action verb in the sentence. And here's our example. The boy rides his bike. The boy. There is only one person the sentence is about. One boy. The boy. So it's singular subject. So that means if we're talking about the boy riding his bike, we're going to need to add an S to the action verb. And ride is the action verb because that's what the boy is doing. So we would say the boy rides. We're going to add an S onto ride because it's just one boy. The boy rides his bike. We don't say the boy ride his bike. Now, it doesn't sound right. The subject and the verb don't agree. To agree, if it's a singular subject, we need to add an S onto the action verb. Rule 2. What do we do if there's more than one subject in a sentence? And instead of saying it's singular, we'll say it's plural. If the subject is plural, that means there's two or more subjects in a sentence. You do not add an S to the action verb, usually because there's already an S on the end of the subject. May not be always, but often there is. For example, if there was more than one boy, now our subject is plural, the boys, we do not add an S to the action verb. Ride is the action verb, but we don't say the boys rides bikes. Because the subject and verb don't agree. The boys ride bikes. You do not add an S to the action verb if the subject is plural, if there's more than one. Now, of course, you know the English language. There's always some exceptions, and there is a rule breaker. I and you are both singular. If I'm using the word I in a sentence, I'm only talking about one person, so it's singular. And the same if I'm talking about you. There's only one person, so it's singular. But for those two words, you don't add an S to the action verb either. Okay, so those two kind of break the rules. They're singular, I and you, but we don't add an S. So we'd say, I ride my bike, not I rides my bike. Okay, so let's practice. Which verb agrees with the subject? So read or reads. So let's look at the sentence. Jackie, something every night. Well, the subject is Jackie, and there's only one of Jackie, so that's singular. And what's the rule? If the subject is singular, we add an S to the action verb. So I think it's going to be Jackie reads every night. Yeah, because Jackie read every night doesn't sound right. The verb and the subject don't agree. Okay, let's try another one. Which verb agrees with the subject? My shoes, something, my feet. Hurts my feet or hurt my feet? Well, my shoes are the subject of the sentence and hurt is the action verb. So my shoes. Well, it's both shoes. So there's more than one. So we're talking about a plural. So we don't add an S to the action verb. So I think it's going to be my shoes hurt my feet. Yep, that sounds good. If it was my shoes hurts my feet, doesn't sound right. The subject and verb don't agree. Okay. The children or child run on the playground. Which subject agrees with the verb? There's no S on the end of the action verb. The verb is run, but there's no S on the end. So I think it's going to be children, because children is plural. And remember, if there's more than one or a plural subject, you don't add an S to the action verb. The children run on the playground. Yep, that sounds good. The child run on the playground? No. If it was just one child, we'd have to add the S to run, and it would be the child runs on the playground. But for this one, it's the children run on the playground. Okay. Which subject agrees with the verb? Something or someone works at a grocery store. Is it mum and dad works at a grocery store or mum works at a grocery store? Well, the verb, the action is works, is work, and it has an S on the end. And I know that the rule is if the subject is singular, you add an S. So I think it's going to be mum because that's just one. Mum works at a grocery store. Yep, that agrees. Mum and dad works at a grocery store? No. If it was mum and dad, we would take the S off. Mum and dad work at a grocery store. Okay. Whoops, we've got ahead of ourselves here. Is the subject singular or plural? My family likes, I've already filled it in for you, to play games. My family likes to play games. Yes, that sounds right. Now, you might be thinking, hang on, we add the S when it's a singular, when there's only one subject. But here's the thing, this is singular because it's one family. So one family, there is only one family. So that is why my family is considered to be singular. If it was both families, then it would be plural. And we'd say both families like to play games. But because it's only one family, we say that's singular. Okay. So that is the end of the practice ones we're going to do together. So remember the rule. If the subject of your sentence is singular, there's only one, then we need to make sure there's an S on the end of the action verb. If there is more than one or plural subject, then we don't add an S to the action verb. And that is how we make sure they agree. What are the exceptions? I and you. We do not add an S for those singular subjects. Otherwise, you're all good. And I think with that knowledge, you are ready to try the Google Forms to practice. There are some questions that give you verbs to choose from and subjects to choose from so that you can make subject and verbs agree. Subjects and verbs agree in the sentences. So have fun practicing.